we've got most of you on board. So welcome everybody. We're in Unit 5 already. So yes, very exciting. We've made it so far. So 2 more units today and then next week, and then we've gone through all the units. So it's really exciting. For those who are regular, welcome. My name is Patricia House, Dr. Patricia House, on the Code Robot team. And I see my colleagues, Safira and Morty and Denzel are here with me. We've had an apologies from Prof. David, who unfortunately has to attend a funeral, and Prof. Singh is still in another meeting. And then we also would like to introduce, after the presentation, we've got 2 new members, Micheline and Mafani, and I'm sure they're going to introduce themselves at the end of the session. So welcome everybody. As usual, please put your questions in the chat. Safura is there; she's monitoring the chat, and I'm also here. We will do our audio where you can unmute your mic and we can chat about what you maybe don't really understand or where you need some more information. And then, of course, we have Denzel is ready to do the presentation. Denzel, I know there's a couple of issues today, but maybe you can also explain that to everybody that's here. All right. So Denzel, Unit 5, over to you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good evening, colleagues. Hope you all are well and rested. Thank you very much for joining us once again on our Monday session. And today's session, we actually have study unit 5. Now, you will notice on the MOOC site, so for those that have already started on it, you will know that this is the MOOC site, the UNISA Open Learning Portal, where we release all our study units. And you will find that today we're supposed to release study unit 5. Unfortunately, because of the current slowness with the MOOC site at the UNISA Open Learning Portal at UNISA, it's actually a result of one of our compulsory MOOCs. It's the first year experience MOOC, and all new students that are applying to UNISA have to successfully complete this MOOC in order to have an acceptance of offer at UNISA. It's part of our way of making sure that those students who come to UNISA understand what it means to be in an ODEL institution, but also understand what it means to be in a distance education context. Unfortunately, we have something like 40,000 students or so on the site frequently, and as a result, it slowed down the server completely. So because it slowed down the server completely, I'm actually waiting for after midnight so that I can publish this site for you and make it available. So today I'm going to run through some of the content, but you will see that the content is actually already available on the site, but I can't publish it because of the slowness of the site. So at midnight tonight, I'll publish the site and you'll have access to the full content on the site as part of this. So you'll see exactly how it unfolds, the portfolio question and everything on it. But for today's session, I'm going to run through some of the course notes that we've got. And then once we finish our course by tomorrow, you'll have full access to the course content and everything that you need to engage with this course content. So colleagues, just remember, for those that are joining us new and don't know anything or have an idea of what I'm talking about, remember this is a fully online course, which means all your course content is on the UNISA Open Learning Portal. The instructions to how to create an account, etc. Please find out that if you haven't actually done that as yet. If you missed out some of our other sessions, please don't feel that you're way behind. You are a bit behind, but you can also catch up with the webinar recording. So every session that we have, we record our sessions, and you'll find that you can get onto the link called Webinar Recordings and Link and Recordings. And under this session, you'll find all the recordings of the sessions we've hosted so far. So there's 4 sessions that we hosted so far. The first one, the 18th of the 10th, the second on the 25th, then the third and the 2nd, then our last on the 8th of the 11th, 8th of 11th, and then 15th of the 11th, and then today's session. So you will be able to easily catch up with whatever you missed on these webinar recordings as part of it. So let's get on to today's session. So as we discussed previously, colleagues, these study units, the aim of this coding and robotics course, we split it up into 2 courses, and this is the basics what we call the basic digital literacy for educators. And the idea here is that we don't assume knowledge to be in place. We want to develop the foundation so everybody is on an equal level plane as we move on to the next part, which is the coding and robotics part. In the coding and robotics part, we will go into greater detail on coding and robotics and also unpack some of the curriculum elements for coding and robotics in terms of the lesson plans, the activities, etc. So this is the foundation, and then in the second part, we build up on this. So colleagues, as I said, you will find the instructions. I see there's a few people that don't know where the MOOC site is, etc. So maybe I can ask Moti and Patricia to please maybe share one of the documents with the registration, how to register for the course on the UNISA Open Learning Portal and access the course. So study unit 5, colleagues, today is understanding smartphones and social media. Now remember, all these elements are linked to the CAPS document, and this is in the digital literacy. We're looking at specifically the strands on application and e-communication, the 2 strands on application and e-communication. So let's look at what we will cover as part of this. So in this study unit, we aim to demonstrate a foundational understanding of smartphones and social media sites, right? So smartphones and social media, knowing that in the African context, one of the easiest ways for us to have access to connectivity, access to the internet is smartphones. Why? Because we know that the highest rate of penetration in Africa is through smartphones, which is increasing quite rapidly amongst all our countries in the continent. So what are some of the key questions that we look at, right? So what is a smartphone? How do smartphones connect to the internet? What are some of the core functions of a smartphone? What is social media? And what are some of the social media apps? And what do you use social media for? So those are some of the questions that we want to unpack. Now, let's look at the first section on what are smartphones, right? So let's look at, and I want to run through some of the content that you will then cover as part of the study unit. So remember, as I said earlier, once you get onto the study unit later, maybe after midnight tonight or tomorrow, you will have access to all the content that I am now discussing. So what are the smartphones? There are different types of smartphones, as we know, rising from different price ranges, from those more cheap, more affordable ones to more expensive ones, depending on what you want to use the smartphones for, and the quality of the phones is also on the prices, right? Now, we know that smartphones, we can remember in the 80s, 90s, you had what you call the PDAs, the personal digital assistants. And I could remember in those days, everybody wanted one of those PDAs that you could track like a personal diary on it, right? What you needed to do. And it was quite an in thing at that particular time, specifically those Palm devices. But we've now moved on to a much more integrated kind of element with the smartphones. And if we look at, for example, the iPhones, previously we should have the iPods. Now the iPhones actually have the features of an iPod on it, iTunes, etc., part of it. So the phones have become more compatible, right? And it's also become much more conducive for us to do, also for doing business as part of it, right? So the smartphones have advanced in terms of what we can do as part of it, but also the entire capability of the device has become much more robust in terms of allowing for us to communicate, connect, also disseminate information through videos, through podcast recordings. So it's become something that we use as part of our everyday lives. It's an important element that is embedded in our daily lives. And this particular study unit it doesn't intend to give you a very in-depth, it's very basic kind of surface on what are smartphones, what are you to do with it, that kind of elements as part of it. So if you look at some of the things that we do with the smartphones, we know that we are able to download applications, for example, from Play Store or from iStore, depending on the device that you've got. You are able to read news articles. You're also able to get RSS feeds as part of this, News 24. You're able to play games on your phone. You're also able to listen to music like YouTube, music, Spotify, iTunes, etc. as part of this. You're also able to connect to the internet using your internet data connection or Wi-Fi. And we've noticed that in South Africa, we now have many spaces provided by municipalities that are free Wi-Fi zones. And I'm thinking specifically of some of the places in Pretoria, like the Union buildings, some of the Church Square, that have these kind of hotspots that are provided by the government for us to connect. So this becomes quite an important way in which smartphones become the easier part to connect to each other, but also connect to some of the services that are provided in terms of access by the government. Then you're able to receive messages, emails. So it's part of being part of a communication network. This is actually your device, your mobile device that keeps you into that space of communication. Video calls, video calls, similar to what you can do with WhatsApp, video calls, etc. For those that have iPhone, FaceTime, etc. So this becomes an easy way for us to communicate with each other, but using the different mediums and modes of communication. And then the more common features, colleagues, you are able to surf the web. And when I say surf the web, I'm not just talking about physically typing into the web. Remember some of the more advanced kind of applications. For example, in Google, you have a microphone that you can actually speak into your phone, and it can search whatever you want it to search. A similar feature like Siri in iPhone that allows for that artificial assistance as part of engaging with the web. And then the QWERTY keyboard that enables you to use it similar to a typical keyboard that you would have on your desk, but this is a touchscreen keyboard. And then you have, remember, you have the different connectivities in terms of your smartphones, 3G, 4G, 5G smartphones, etc. That connects you to the type of internet that is available. And then you have, let's start with the features of an Android smartphone, right? So we know that with Android smartphones, typically you access your applications from the Google Play Store. That icon represents Google Play Store. And this particular section of the study guide shows you how you can download an app. So what do you need to do? You need to open up your phone, log on to your Google Play. And remember, Google Play is in majority of our phones now is a standard feature. It's already part of your phones installed on your phones, right? So you search for what app you want, for example, WhatsApp, and then you click on the WhatsApp, you download the WhatsApp, but you can also, and something that I realized quite importantly here is that in many of these apps are available on even the ones that are on iStore as well. It's always good to look at the ratings and the ratings of these apps and the reviews of these apps, because you find that when people are downloading some of these apps and they review and rate, they are able to tell you what are the pitfalls of some of these apps. So you'll be able to see that some of these people tell you that reviews tell you that this app was good, it's excellent, it works well, but then you may also get a few people that may tell you this app is very problematic, or so those reviews on the App Store is actually critical in terms of reviewing some of these things before you can actually start downloading it. Okay, and so this gives you a good idea of how to download the apps. Then to install some of the other apps, like, for example, Microsoft Teams, which you are all using. And remember, it's also a mobile version, so you can download the app as well on a mobile device. And here's a little tip for you. Those that are especially in many meetings on Microsoft Teams, and we know COVID has caused us to attend a lot of meetings. You can actually use two devices to attend different meetings as part of this. And this has actually worked quite well if you are multitasking across meetings. And typically, we also found during the COVID time, many educators were opting to use Zoom as part of the extended classroom space. And this became quite an important app in Zoom, which allowed for those video conferencing kind of elements with the 40 minutes free as part of the first package that you have, and then you pay for the subscription. Then Google Classroom were also some of the apps that you could download on. So how do smartphones connect to the internet? And here we're looking at the type of connectivity that is typically embodied in this space, and how smartphones connect to the internet in terms of the Wi-Fi connectivity, bandwidth, etc. Right? And remember, we in South Africa, we're moving slowly now to 5G, and many generally in some areas we have 5G, which is 5G compatible. It just gives you a faster connection. So this is also something that you should take note of in terms of the connection and the speed of the device, the connection of the device, and what kind of connection the device actually allows for. How smartphones connect to the internet? Yes, I will show you a little graph on, for example, the connecting via a phone with a Wi-Fi router, or the modem that you connect by your home, where you can turn your router at home into a Wi-Fi zone as well. And typically, many of you may also be on the move in terms of whether you're in the classroom, and if your school doesn't have Wi-Fi compatibility and you've got a laptop or you've got an iPad as you want to use as part of your class. And what many people do is they turn their smartphones into a Wi-Fi hotspot. So if you have about 4 or 5 people that are in a classroom context that are using a particular exercise on the internet, and you want to tap them into your phone. So you turn your phone into a hotspot. And this is quite nice, specifically if you're on the go in terms of you're traveling and there's no internet in certain spaces, Wi-Fi that you can tap into. As long as you've got a phone and the phone can connect to the internet, it becomes quite easy to tap into that spaces. So in this particular activity, we tell you a little bit about how you could turn your phone into a portable hotspot for your connecting to any of your other devices, right? And this is an important feature, as I said, especially in our own context in terms of where we can access connectivity. So what is the difference between Wi-Fi and cellular data? And if you do a lot of streaming, for example, Netflix or video or DSTV on your app, on your phone app, or even Prime Video TV, you note that the moment you switch it on, it actually asks you, do you want to cross over from cellular data to Wi-Fi because of the cost implications? So what is the difference between Wi-Fi and cellular data? Cellular data is typically when you connect your phone to the internet using your phone signal, right? And Wi-Fi is when you tap into an internet router, or at your home if you have a Wi-Fi router, or if you're in a business place where you got Wi-Fi, or in a public place where there's Wi-Fi. Now, there's obviously security reasons in some security cautions in some of these spaces, specifically if you're in a public space, and how you access Wi-Fi with some of your smartphones. Now, remember, many of our smartphones are also used for banking apps, and also the one-time PINs, the OTPs. So this is why it's very, very important that you, while you are connecting even to some of these Wi-Fi public spaces, that you're cautious of how you connect to these spaces and you preserve some of the data, right? And typically, also, the kind of carriers that we are offered by, for example, Wi-Fi and cellular is the Vodacom, MTN, Cellular, etc. And then you have your routers at home, for example, that are set up, your Wi-Fi router, and I'm thinking typically here of your like, for example, 5G would reign, right, in some of your areas, although it's not the best form of connectivity, but it allows for in certain areas you do get good signals where you can turn your home into a Wi-Fi zone as well. So this is typically how you connect with Wi-Fi and cellular data and what's the differences. And as I said, in the next study unit, we'll actually we'll address the issue of connectivity and security when it comes to cybersecurity, cyber safety. But just a caution here for many that are using their phones as hotspots, etc., and tapping into public Wi-Fi spaces as well, to be cautious. So how the connection of Wi-Fi, mobile data, Bluetooth location, and as you can see here, this is typically an Android device where you can pull down and you see some of these features. And remember, the iOS, the Apple device, also has a similar interface as well, where you can find your Wi-Fi connectivity that is part of it. And remember, the airplane mode is when you want to switch off. So your phone can still be on, but you don't receive a signal in your phone. So airplane mode basically means you're switching off your signal, but your phone is still active. So this is where, if you're traveling in a plane, normally the hostess will tell you can switch your phone on to airplane mode now and use your phone device, or whether you've got a laptop or your iPad. That means that you are able to use your device, but you don't transmit or receive a signal, which then doesn't pose a threat to the airplane's navigation system. Bluetooth allows you to connect wirelessly. Now, remember, some of you have Bluetooth devices like your earphones, your earplugs, and it allows you to connect to those devices. And then location. Now, even the location bar that is always enabled here. So, for example, typically when you are taking photographs, and if your photo saves the metadata, like I'm thinking of some of these iPhones that save the metadata of where you're taking the photo, normally if the location is on, it can then save the photo with the stamped location plus the date, etc. This also becomes quite important. If you're looking at some of your banking apps, it actually asks you to put in your location or enable your location as part of this. This is to ensure that it can track where you are as part of the data. Then how do you view files transfer your smartphone to your PC? Now, this is important specifically if you use your mobile device a lot, right? You'll find that this particular section allows you to say, how do you transfer your files from your computer from your phone using a USB cable to your computer? And then also the NFC, the near field communication protocols that allows you. Now this is quite important, the NFC protocols on your phone. I'm thinking, for example, some of the printers that are now enabled that allows you to use the NFC functions to print out a document, or send a document, send a photo to your nearest printer. And this is quite an handy tool, especially if you don't have cables that you need to plug in the phone, plug in your laptop, or plug in your phones into your laptop and then print out an image. You can literally transfer the image onto your printer. So this is quite a nifty little feature in terms of how we are moving into much more accessible way of distributing knowledge, of distributing information across these spaces. Then you also have what you call how to set up your Android Android phone, smartphone, and it shows you, for example, step one is insert your SIM card, installation, where you want to put in your Wi-Fi password. So this shows you how to set up those codes. And something quite interesting here, colleagues, is the use of biometrics in many of our smartphones. Now, for example, biometrics, it's nothing new for us, colleagues. We've already seen this in many of our banking apps where we use fingerprint or facial recognition, and this allows for a level of security as part of this. So many phones already have those biometrics. Either I'm thinking of the iPhones, you print in the front, you put your thumbprint or in the front, or in some of the other phones, you have your biometric reader in the back of the phone. So this allows for a level of security in addition to, for example, PINs, passwords, or sometimes the little diagram that you draw on your phone. Now, these type of things, that the pattern recognition, the PIN password, and the biometrics is what we call the multi-factor authentication, the MFA, right? And here it shows you how some of these elements that these processes are done in terms of locking your screen, etc. And we're using an Android device phone as an example because many people have Android phones as compared to iPhones. And remember, iPhones are a bit more expensive in terms of the market, so Android phones are but much more accessible to many in the market. And then it shows you how to set up your fingerprint and unlock using your fingerprint. And also remember, when you use some of these fingerprint IDs, your banking apps also link up with these fingerprint IDs as part of your password recognition as well. And then what is the difference between Android and iOS? Now, here we show you the difference between say a little bit about what is an iPhone made by Apple, Android made by Google, and it shows a little bit of difference in terms of the operating systems, right? So if you look at this diagram, it shows the table. It now shows you what is the Android and what is the iOS system. Now, as I said, one of the typical is the cost, but while I say Apple is costly, there are many Android iPhones that are very costly as well. But one of the things that are more common about Apple is the type of apps that are available on some of the Apple app stores are not necessarily available on the Google Play Store. So you have that kind of distinction in terms of the apps that are available. But the general kind of elements of connectivity and what you can do in terms of the brightness, etc., are all literally the same in terms of how you what you can do as part of this, right? So as shown here, you can see the structure of a smartphone is slightly different. It's the smartphone, you get your screen, and remember this is a touch screen. So you can see your icons displaying right at the front of it. Your volume buttons are normally on the side. Your home button is at the center, and then you get your power reset button. And these are your applications. So you literally scroll through on sideways or however you are setting up your screen, and it allows you to see through your apps on this. Now, remember I mentioned earlier about some of the accessibility features, such as, for example, Google, and you'll have a little microphone that you can tap into. And when you tap into the microphone, you can literally speak and ask Google to search something for you. So it's typically a version of what we would find in Apple in terms of Siri, the artificial voice, right? And then the QWERTY keyboard. It shows you what the type of keyboard is. And remember, the good thing about this is in many phones have a variety of keyboards that you can change, because in some languages there are different features of the keyboard. So the phones allow you to change some of those type of keyboards as well and make it much more accessible for yourself. So how do some of these smartphones work? The operating system, your operating system OS, or the Android operating system, how to make a phone call, how to receive a phone call. So these are basic things, colleagues, that we tap into, because we think that this is an important part when we start talking about digital literacy, and we talk about basic things that we take for granted as part of these elements, right? And some of the things, for example, of how to take a screenshot and send that screenshot. And that's quite important, specifically when we talk about accessing our information. How to send a message, and then how to send an email using Gmail. Now, remember, many of these Android phones come with the Gmail option as part of it. So many people are now using Gmail because of its accessibility as compared to some of the other platforms, right? So, colleagues, this gives you a good idea now of the smartphones and how the smartphones are used. Now, why we tap into the next part of the study in social media is because many of our smartphones have social media apps embedded in it, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, or WhatsApp, or Instagram, or even TikTok. These are basic kind of apps that comes part of what we call the social media experience. Now, quickly, I want to start up our next session on smartphones, on social media. I thought, let me play this short video clip for us, right? And so as you watch it, you'll be able to see this.
With social media sites being used by 1/3 of the entire world, they've clearly had a major influence on society.
Is, the internet, all that stuff that I don't use.
Social media, I guess it's a place for people to connect people from all over the world.
Okay, colleagues, so you'll see from this particular video that the idea of social media has evolved a lot in terms of how we see ourselves as being part of this digital world. It's touched on education, politics, economics, even social life such as dating sites, etc. And if you looked at some of the more critical elements, for example, the idea of communication as part of the spaces and distributing knowledge, and if we looked at how during the COVID time, many of the higher education institutions have also tapped onto social media as a way to disseminate some of the learning material. So it has evolved in terms of how we see the space. And we look at just one example of Facebook, for example, Facebook, the idea of commerce being integrated, shopping facilities, etc., as part of the space. In addition to that, if many of you are following some of the bigger debates in terms of how Facebook is evolving, you will know that Facebook is now integrating a large part of virtual reality as part of its portfolio in terms of social media. So this is and if you look at the apps that are Oculus that uses Facebook as part of this way to integrate virtual reality. So what exactly is social media, right? So social media is a website application that allows you to create, share content, engaging with others. So it goes beyond. Well, typically we use it for social aspects such as sharing pictures of your family, communicating. We've also seen people use this as a space to brand themselves as well. So it's part of our life and integrated in part of who we are. And many people literally live on some of these spaces as part of their livelihoods, like a reality type of reality show. So Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Telegram, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Google Classroom, Pinterest, YouTube are some of the more popular ones if we look at these platforms. Now, social media and education, we know that communication and collaboration, but we've also seen social media being used to set up communities of practice. So, for example, you have teachers that may set up a Facebook page or a closed Facebook group only by invitation where you join these groups, but it has become an online space of communication. And this is where we see that people are using it via smartphones, tablets, computers, and accessing some of these sites in order to share information. You also look at some of these websites provides learners with information that they may need to do their own work. We find that some people are now also offering extra tuition on Facebook as well as part of this. So it's really creating an extended space for teaching and learning, an extended space for communication as part of this. And one of the most important things is the accessibility of it. Now, if we look at some of the free sites, for example, self-teach services, there are some sites that they enable as zero-rated data, and some of them enable a selective version, for example, of Facebook that offers less graphics or less resolution on some of its apps, but allows you to tap into these as part of the zero-rated data as well. Distance learning. So, for example, many of our distance learning education institutions throughout the world are tapping into Facebook as a learning management system as well. Just recently, I've seen a very Ivy League university use Facebook to offer an MBA as part of its offering. So while we think of these platforms, the use for social media in terms of family, socializing, etc., it literally is a tool that can be used to broaden our insights in terms of teaching and learning. Now, if we take, for example, Facebook that is installed on every single app, on phones, it's the majority of phones. If you don't install it, it comes with the app that you can download on iStore or Google Play. It allows for that immediate access once you have that account. And this allows for much more easier navigation in terms of learning management platforms. Now, obviously, there are issues in terms of privacy of personal information and the rest of the stuff that comes into it. And we know some of these social media sites, for example, Google and Facebook, came under much criticism during the U.S. election time, specifically for the type of political marketing, advertising they were doing as part of these spaces. Now, that allows you to also, if we look at some of these spaces, there are very strong algorithms behind it. So, for example, if you are searching for a specific item on Facebook marketing, Facebook market area, if you're buying a car, the next thing when you search into your Facebook account, you'll find a whole lot of pictures of cars that are advertised as part of this, because it's reading the information that you are seeing as part of what you are interested in. So this is important to know the type of information, the systems that you're feeding into some of these apps. So Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Telegram, Microsoft Teams, Zoom. It shows you the table shows you some of these apps and what it can be done, what can be used for, right? Typically, when I looked at the impact on COVID on schools, many schools actually started to use Google Classrooms as part of their extended teaching learning environment when they didn't have a learning management system. And this allowed for many people to tap into it, many parents to tap into it, because it was easy for them to show their children how to use some of these platforms. So that was quite important in terms of the tools that were available to some of during the COVID impact time. Then the YouTube. Setting up your own YouTube channel, and we find what's interesting in the use of YouTube, it has become quite an important space for many tutorials. So people are creating their own tutorials straight up on these spaces, and it's become a nice space to also brand yourself, as I said earlier. But also remember, some of these spaces, for example, YouTube, You can enable the comments or you can disable the comments. But what it allows you to do is to interact with some of your audience as well as part of this space, and also to premiere. And YouTube also as a function of live broadcasting on this as well. So how to install some of these social media apps. We show you a bit on the social media apps that you can install, how to set up a Facebook account as part of this. And then clicking a new account as well, passwords. And in the next study unit, we'll talk about passwords and what you should use, what you shouldn't use as part of it in terms of risk factor. But this shows you a simple of how to create a Facebook account, how to install Messenger, how to install WhatsApp on your mobile device, and then also to review the terms of service and privacy of policy. Now, many people didn't realize this until, for example, the terms of service and privacy policy agreed to continue is when WhatsApp came out and people said, but government is now going to try to monitor everything that you're doing and they have a right to monitor what's happening on WhatsApp. And that's what people, if you recall, just recently, people started to jump to Telegram, for example, as part of this. So it's very important that you read this to understand what information is being passed out, what information is accessible, also what information the government can use against you at the end of the day in terms of monitoring your phones as part of their service. And interesting this is that while we have our general security in terms of police forces, many countries have now instituted a online patrolling type of military force, etc., policing as well, is to see what is happening on these spaces. Specifically, when we think of some of the major bombs, etc., that were part of using social media as part of a communication mechanism. So social media is also highly monitored as by the government as well in terms of what is being done. Then, when you're setting up your WhatsApp, you can also link it up to your laptop. And when you link it up to your laptop or your desktop, it also allows you to link up the device. So you will need to scan your QR code, and this is a QR code that you will need to scan. Right. So when you tap on your own phone, you'll see your own QR code. And then we touched a little bit about Telegram. And I've also seen one of our new NGOs that is emerging very strongly in the country that is training up grade 12s and using Telegram as a way to offer online tutoring. Then Microsoft Teams. We've also seen that you've already started using it and many of you have explored it. So this gives you a little bit about how Microsoft Teams works. And you've already read some of this information as part of our orientation session in the first part on the webinars. But this also shows you a little bit about, tells you a little bit more. And I know somebody had the question last time, are we going to show you a little bit of Microsoft Teams? So this also gives you a little bit more of how you set up Microsoft Teams, how you set up a profile, and how you create an account successfully. And then Zoom, we've also had it a little bit more. We've discussed this already in the previous section on productivity apps, but we've also added a little bit more as a refresher as part of this as well. And then Google Classroom, to set up your Google Classroom, what you need. And this is, as I said, we're moving into the fourth wave in our country, and it might be good for you to actually explore some of these apps, specifically if we are tasked in the early part of next year to extend our learning spaces as well. And then it shows you that part on Google Classroom and how to set up a Google Workspace education. So this gives you a good idea of what Google Classroom is used as. And then Pinterest, where you find a whole lot of graphics and images. So we show you on a little bit about that. And then YouTube, and what will be interesting here is to show you how you can set up your own channel. And maybe we can do that some other time. But we touched a little bit about an introduction into what is YouTube. But you'll find that as you search some of these and you search some of the people. So for example, when you're searching, click on some of these profiles of the people and you will find that you'll see how they have set up their own channels, but more specifically how some of them are actually making money from these channels through advertising in these part of these spaces. Okay, and then Google Gmail, the latter part of it as part of Gmail, as part of the features. So yeah, and Facebook. So it shows you how to create a post, what it means to create a post on Facebook as part of posting. So many of you are already new to this, are not new to this, so you are quite familiar with this. And this actually gives you that little additional information on what is Facebook, WhatsApp, etc. So this actually creates a nice space for you to have that additional level of reading as part of this. So colleagues, this gives you a good idea on social media sites and what it can be used for and how it's actually used. So you would have known, so now you have an idea of why we linked specifically the social media sites. But more specifically how we linked it with with the smartphones and the social media. Now that brings us to the end of this section. So what I want to do now quickly is go through the question for the portfolio activity more specifically, and what does this mean for us in terms of our portfolio question. So as we said last time, our portfolio question is literally to link you back to think about what this means for you in your own space. So what we would like you to do here, and we know that as I mentioned previously, we will give you rubrics towards this next week when we start discussing the last part in the portfolio. But the question that we'd like you to link here is, for this portfolio activity, you are required to answer the following two questions. Explain what is a smartphone and how you would use it to extend the teaching and learning space. So it's really application. Smartphone, how would you integrate a smartphone into your classroom to extend the learning space, right? And the second question, so that's just about 400 to 500 words. And the second question is identify one social media site. So your own preference, so whatever you are comfortable with. If you're comfortable with Twitter, if you're comfortable with Instagram, if you're comfortable with Facebook, and explain how this could be used for teaching and learning in 400 to 500 words. Now, for example, let me give you a quick example on social media site integration of Facebook. And one of the things that we do in one of our modules is to look at how ritual sites are integrated into South Africa, whether it's African traditional religion or any of the other religions. And we ask students to take photographs of those sites, those places, locations, geotag it to where it is, map it out on a map, geotag it, and put in metadata and post it up onto the Facebook site. So students are able to produce knowledge on their own spaces using, for example, Facebook as a medium to get this done. So this is how we can get students to integrate as part of the medium creatively, but use these spaces as part of workforce, of working area. So the second part is identify one social media site, your own preference, and explain how this could be used in teaching and learning in 400 to 500 words. Thank you very much, colleagues. And remember, as I said earlier, by midnight, latest tonight or tomorrow, you'll be able to access the site and you'll be able to get all the content that I've just spoken about today. Thank you, Patricia.
Oh, thank you, Denzel. That was, we actually initially just thought maybe two topics, smartphones and social media. But as you notice, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of options, there's a lot to learn. I think with social media, you kind of choose your one or two sites. But now is an opportunity maybe to venture into something else. Try another social media site, see what you can do, what you can learn. Exciting times. And remember, this is about learning as well, and learning what there is to offer. I'm kind of thinking this list of social media is maybe not static. It's always dynamic. It's always growing. And I think if we'd had this presentation maybe a year back, how different it would maybe have looked. And now, you know, we just keep adding, because that's part of the time that we're in, about learning and learning different things and being open to learning. And most of you are teaching learners, and maybe by the time you've learned, they can teach you a thing or two. So it's a different space. It's definitely a different space. All right, so we come to that part where, thank you, Denzel. Thank you for, again, compact presentation. And I'm hoping that everybody is now going to ask some questions or contribute. If you've got a comment to make as well, you are more than welcome. As usual, Safura and Moti are on the chat, and they will answer all your questions. And I'm waiting for people to raise their hands. And you could welcome to unmute yourself if you want to ask a question, if you want to add something, if something has popped into your head and you'd like to contribute it and share it with the rest of this community, you are also more than welcome. All right, so now it's up to you. We're listening to questions. Safura, are there any questions on your side so long?
No, everything seems to be answered. There was just one question that Nomsa asked, when is the due date for the portfolio? And I told her that she needs to go onto the MOOC site. All the dates are provided to her there.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And Moti has given them information on how to get onto the MOOC site and how to create a new account. So everything is there in the chat.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Safura. Thank you so much. All right. And there are no hands raised. Wow. That's interesting. Denzel, I think you have put everybody into silence. They are all overwhelmed. They never knew that there was so much to learn about social media and smartphones. Yeah. I would also say that a smartphone, by definition, is not just a phone anymore. The phone is now the camera. It's the video. It's the recorder. It's the everything. And one of the things I will need to do over the holidays is to unload or download all my photographs, because I just have far too many pictures on my device. Mook has put up his hand. Hi, Mook. You're welcome to unmute yourself and comment.
Hi, Patricia.
Hi, yes.
Okay, I've got a question. Not on this portfolio,
Okay.
but on the past assessment on Unit 4. There's a question there which says that we should state the name of the school that we're teaching in. So I have no idea of what's happening there. Like, can I get I don't know, I need some light.
All right. Denzel, do you want to maybe answer this?
Yeah. What are you teaching at a school?
Sorry?
Are you teaching at a school?
No.
Okay. Then you can flag any other school that is close to you that you have engaged with before.
That I've engaged before.
You're not a teacher.
No.
Okay. Patricia, I'm not sure how to answer that, Patricia.
Okay, so maybe yeah, we just also we don't know what your name. I'm sure your name is not Mook, but so the whole thing about this course is it was designed for digital literacy for teachers. So I think the assumption was that you would be a teacher at a school, and that you are equipping yourself to teach learners. So in that case, yeah, so you are welcome to add the name of any school that you have maybe attended or that you're working with.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, okay. Okay then.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right. All right.
Okay. Cool. All right, did I see another hand? Terence, you're unmuted. Terence, would you like to add something? Terence, you look like you're unmuted. Oh, there you're muted again. You didn't want to ask a question. All right. Anybody else got any comments to make or questions?
Terence wasn't, I think he's got a problem with his mic.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Matilda. Thank you so much. All right.
Patricia, can I come in here?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Mev has a question. She wants to double check the dates of the due dates, right? And she is trying to get on the site and cannot at the moment. So apparently there was discussion of extensions. So has those dates been adjusted in the site, Denzel?
I'm just trying to 1 second. I'm just trying to get onto the site to see the due dates. Okay, so let me share the screen. Okay, so colleagues, this is the schedule, right? So if you recall, we started in week 1, 13th to 17th, week 2, the orientation, week 3, understanding, week 4, basics, week 5, we went to understanding the internet and web browsers. Then last week, understanding basic productivity apps. This week, understanding smartphones and social media. Next week, we will be discussing managing online identity and digital well-being. Week 9 is a 6 to 12. We will then also be discussing your portfolios as part on when we finish next week. We will also discuss your portfolios, right? We then give you 1 week, 6 to 9, to complete the portfolios. Initially, we said the portfolios must be due by the 12th of December. However, we knew some of you asked for an extension, so we gave you until the 17th of December. So we extended that date. So you now due your portfolios must now be submitted by the 17th of December. So when we meet on the 6th of December, this should be, we will discuss the portfolio and what you have. So you literally have, if I look at that, about 1.5 weeks to so, or 1.5, 2 weeks to complete the portfolio.
Thanks, Denzel.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right. Safura, you're organized then.
I'm organized. This there's still some colleagues are asking us about the activities. So really, the activities that you have to do, it's not mandatory, but it's good to do it so you understand the content better. However, after every webinar and after every unit, there is an assessment which will go towards the main portfolio. That has to be done. So that's the difference between the activities and the main assessment. The main assessment in each unit goes towards a portfolio. The activities are there for you to understand the content better. Did I answer that well, Denzel?
100%, Safura.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And okay, that's about it. Oh, there's one from Rocher who says school closes on the 15th. So they have a lot of assessments and schoolwork to get done before the 15th. I think, Denzel, back again here, Patricia, we've tried our best to give them an extension and to work around their dates. So I don't know if there's any more we can do. What do you say?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think maybe Sharon has to come in there to ask, because remember we're working with DBE timelines as well. And yeah, maybe we can ask Sharon to say that.
Can we make an announcement on the MOOC portal?
Yes, there's a date they talk about. They did say no later than the 24th of December. So I think let us discuss it and see if it's conducive to everybody. We have to take everyone's
Okay.
decision into account.
Okay,
so can't please everyone, of course.
I've noted it, and we will take it up with DBE then. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Safura. Thank you. There was a Mapula that had her hand up, or his or her hand up. Yes, you're welcome to unmute. Hi.
Evening, how are you?
I'm very well, and yourself?
I'm fine. I was concerned about the due date, but as you indicated that you'll do something, you'll talk about it. Okay. And the other thing was just a comment to say we are having gadgets. We did not know how important they are to our teaching. What we knew is that you do the WhatsApp and all those things, but we were not aware that we can use the WhatsApp for teaching our learners. So it was very interesting to hear that.
It's exciting times. It's an exciting time. Awesome. Excellent. Watch, you're unmuted. Nomsa, you're unmuted. You want to add? Oh. All right. I thought they were going to. Nobody else has got their hand up? Apollo, you're quite right. This is really exciting times where we can explore different ways of doing things. And I think that's part of the activities and the portfolio as well, is maybe just to see how far you can explore new ground, new territory, especially in the technology realm. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, no more questions. No more answers. All right.
The chat is quiet as well.
I know.
So we're done.
I think we're done then. I'm going to, I don't want to catch Shoran off guard, but I'm going to ask him, Shoran, if you'd like to close the session for us.
Of course I would.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Patricia, thank you so much. Colleagues, apologies. I was in traffic and I switched my phone on and I was learning while driving, which isn't really a smart thing to do. But colleagues, thank you so much for attending the session. You know, each day or each session we attend, we empower ourselves better and we are able to communicate better, understand better what we are trying to do within the space. And our students will develop a better understanding of the area in which we are working. As you all may have noticed, the technology changes extremely fast. Every day, there's at least 100 new technologies being unleashed onto the internet, and we are working in that space. It is not incumbent on us to learn each one of them, but what is incumbent on us is to understand how that technology affects what we are doing, affects our teaching, affects our students, affects our community at large. And we have started that journey of understanding how technology is affecting our society, our learning processes, and our communities at large. Colleagues, thank you so much. We look forward to seeing your portfolios. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks, Shoran. Thanks, Afura. Thanks, Denzel. Thanks, Moti. Absolutely. Here we go. Here we go into the future. Enjoy your marvelous Monday. Okay, and we will see each other again next week. Thanks, team. Stay well. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.